We're here in the studio tonight with Bradley Cahill. He was here a couple years ago, sculptor from over in Sycamore, Illinois.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're more than welcome.
Thanks for having me back, too. This is awesome.
Well, thanks for coming out. What you been going on sculpting lately?
Lately, I've been working really hard on this piece that I'm so excited to have this. There's this program out of West Des Moines University. It's a new kind of a program, Art on the Campus, and they did a call for entries for a bunch of sculptures, and I got accepted. So there was 12 of us. In April, we'll all go down and install our work. They put together these 4-foot concrete pads, and that work will live there from April until November.
Okay, and anybody can go see this.
It'll be right there on the campus, inside. It's like a quad, I suppose. It's like a sculpture park inside of the university.
Okay.
Yeah, it's real nice. So that's what I've been focusing on a lot lately. I've been finishing this statue called Madame Rain. I've put out a little things here and there on social media. You've probably seen.
No, I did not. Do you got some pictures of it?
Some pictures here and there, yeah. I like to do little videos of, like the opening of the eyes and things like that.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So, yeah, the sculpture business it's going. I've been doing a bunch of applications and trying to get my exhibition season going this year.
You were telling me you had a few shows coming up.
I do indeed. Let's see.
Let everybody know where you can see some Bradley Cahill sculptures at a show.
At the end of April, I'll be at the Elmhurst Art Fair. At the end of May, I'll be at the St. Charles Art Fair. In the first weekend of August, I'll be at the Wheaton Art Walk. And then in July, I'll be at the Geneva Art Fair. That's going to be really fun. And then I got some gallery shows going on in Dayton, Ohio tonight. When does this air?
This podcast?
Sometime next week, maybe?
Yeah, sometime next week.
That Saturday night.
Go ahead and pull that up.
That Saturday night, March 4th, I believe, in Dayton, Ohio, Circles Art Studio is having this. This is going to be really cool. It's called the Night of the Misfit Toys.
That's interesting.
Do you remember that old Rankin and Bass Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer?
No.
And they went to the Island of the Misfit Toys?
No, I don't remember that.
It was this weird claymation holiday special, and one of the elves, he wanted to be a dentist. real weird. So they went to the Island of the Misfit Toys. So anyway.
Well, I could see that elves would have a lot of cavities with all those cookies and stuff.
They probably would. Probably a diabetic amongst them, I would imagine. So other than that, let's see. Next Friday, the first Friday of March, whatever this, I don't know. I don't have a calendar in front of me. At the Beverly Arts Center in Chicago, there's the Art Comp number 45. I was really excited to get into that one. Juried exhibitions, trying to spread dust around,
Spread dust around. Now, remind me what your sculptures are made out of. I forget. Because it was 2 years ago since you were here and you told us.
It's been a long time, and COVID makes it more like 6 years. Right?
Well, it seems like
it's aged us all in a way.
But you don't use limestone or concrete. You use regular rocks.
Limestone I do. It's all hand-carved stones. Yep.
Yes, exactly.
Limestone, marble. I've dipped into a little bit of granite. That's really
Now, what
difficult.
kind of tools do you need for that?
A lot of tools, Shane. I'll tell you. I've been.
Do you shop at Harbor Freight a lot? For some chisels?
I started there, and I got the full line of pretty much every hardware store around. Lowe's has a particular line. Menards has theirs. And then I started, mostly I order from a company called Trow & Holden. They're a tool maker in Vermont, and they've been making just stoneworking tools for 150 years or something.
Okay, now does that like some kind of diamond tip on it?
Some of them, yeah. They
Okay.
different hardened steel, carbide steel. Depending on the stone, you can do just normal drop forged steel, real soft steel, almost like a railroad spike. You know, certain rocks are so soft that you can scratch them with a knife. You know, but when you're getting into harder stones, your marbles, you need hardened steel, and then granite. You're cutting with diamond wheels. You're using carbide steel. That's a really, people that carve granite, I really respect them, because that is a really difficult rock.
Do you use any air hammers?
Oh yeah. I've got a nice 60-gallon compressor and a couple different sizes of pneumatic hammer. It increases your, to go from one stroke at a time to like 30 strokes a second is, it's money. So working on those larger pieces, you wouldn't believe pneumatic tools have been around since the 1890s.
Can you give me a history on that?
That's mostly about all I know, but as far as machining goes, and in the Industrial Revolution, a lot of them will talk a lot about cotton, and that was a big industry in this country, but the stoneworking in this country goes back all the way pretty much to the beginning, and fine masons.
Okay.
The United States has imported fine Italian, especially Italian stone carvers and masons. Almost since the beginning of the founding of this country. Just because skilled labor is, it's in demand.
Well, I've been in Europe, and so there's a lot of different carvings, and everything is much different there with the cobblestone streets and the architecture. It's so much different than here.
Right.
So they probably, when they all immigrated here, they brought those skills with them.
100%. They brought their skills, and there's a lot of secrets. A lot of the different trades.
You know what else they brought? Some kick-ass food.
That's right. All those good recipes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Keep America fed, right?
Keep it fat.
Yeah. And really, it would be generations of people that would bring a certain skill set would be imported. And especially around here, like in Chicago, cathedral restoration started in the early 1900s, and they would bring Italian master stone carvers to work on all those buildings, because they have all the secrets and they know how to all the tools, obviously.
Yeah.
And just certain abilities that would stay within families and within a guild, would be just a certain number of people. And when they died off, a lot of those secrets kind of went with them. It's
more of a family secret tradition kind of a thing.
Exactly. And you can think of that same way. Recipes are the same way. Grandma used to make whatever.
The best biscuits and gravy, but she doesn't. She didn't ever give my auntie the recipe.
Right. My grandma would make stuff. Just she knew how to make biscuits. She just made them so many times. She just did it by feel, the dough by feel. And you just don't write that kind of stuff down,
Yeah, exactly.
It's gone,
It's a pinch of pepper.
Right. Well,
it's not a teaspoon of pepper. It's
right.
A pinch.
Well, what's a pinch? Well, it's a little less than a dash, and it's
it's how you feel it.
It's a little more than a sprinkle,
Exactly. So how many sculptures have you done in the last couple years since we've seen you?
Man, I gotta tell you, I feel like I've been on fire. I've completed, I couldn't even tell you, so much different work. But the business of it, there's so much to it, like as a sculptor now, I'm in a really good position. I'm really lucky that I can be my own, like an entrepreneur, like starting my own business, but with that, there's the sculpting, which I just love to do, but then there's also, you got to be a marketer also. You've got to be a distributor. You've got to do everything. You got to be the accountant. You got to be, So over the years, I've learned how to divide my time in a way where I'm not just making sculpture. I have to pull myself out of it at least one day a week to focus on paperwork. It's a lot of fucking paperwork.
Ain't nobody gonna do it for you.
No, and they wouldn't know what I'm looking for anyway. There's applications for things.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, it's not like you can have the wife sit down and do it for you. She's not in my head. I know what I'm looking for.
Exactly.
I get you.
And people that are further along in their career, there are people, like folks that show work at the NIU Museum. There's a fellow, when I was working there was a fellow that lived in Chicago, and his building was right next door to Oprah's building. So he's like in the rich section of Chicago. But this guy was just cranking out paintings, just masterworks. But he had a lot of people around him that were packing, and they were his children, which was great. Even the young ones, I think the youngest boy, 10, 11 years old, he's like, oh yeah, that one needs to go here, this one needs to get packed, this one's doing this. And at that level, what he was working on, he could definitely afford to have a team.
Well, and it's nice when you have a family team.
Right, and it's a project, for them,
And think about the bonding moment that it is for the family.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Surrounding, this is
kind of like America, if I can say this for a moment. We don't sit around the kitchen table anymore for supper.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's, people work multiple shifts, parents, this, that, and the other, sports. So having a family business kind of puts you in that perspective of like sitting down at dinner.
Right.
You're there together, you know each other, it's a bonding moment.
Yep. And you can go through and have a shared experience about whatever that is.
Well, even if it's successful or if it was non-successful, because you got to learn how to lose in order to learn how to win.
100%. You got to see all sides of it. That's the reality of things. You got to go out there and you got to fall. You got to keep falling.
If you don't skin your knees, you never know what a skinned knee is.
Right. And you don't know how to navigate the world to not get a skinned knee next time.
Yeah. Don't do that again.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to really hurt yourself to know you don't want to do that anymore.
I've made a career out of it.
And when it comes to this kind of business, in particular in the art business, now we're at a time where there's online galleries. That's huge. The ability to share on social media is just, it's something that you just couldn't do,
But do you feel that you don't have that people interaction?
Well, I seek it. A lot of folks you can definitely have a business by just doing your work and then just doing all of your business online. Getting the hook already. I noticed for my COVID year where I couldn't do exhibitions, I was really at a loss, and I didn't even understand for a minute what exactly it was that I was losing out on until
when COVID first hit. Everybody was a little bit confused because nobody knew what to think. You didn't know if it was how long it was gonna last, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But everybody got through it pretty good, I think. Unfortunately, it was bad at first, but we all
quite so. I stayed optimistic through it, and I really feel the same way. I feel like that we're all better at the end, psychologically. I think that a lot of us, and I can even point to myself, a lot of us kind of took our foot off the pedal a little bit. I think it made us really become a lot more conscious, about just like, what am I doing? What is...
Oh, you had a philosophical moment.
I had existential dread.
Well, being an artist, you would.
I fell into the void a couple of times. I have to admit.
Oh, that's funny.
But luckily, we're all coming out. We're doing better now.
You get back to some art shows where you can have some interactions with people. You can have a deli tray, and you can sell some pieces while you're there.
Well, and also a big thing about a huge component about any of the fine arts, music, performance, whatever, the viewer is such an integral part. You can be in your studio making and making and making, but putting it out there and sharing it, it's a
whole nother feeling. I can go over here and jam and master a song, but until I play it in a crowd, then I know.
When you look out and you turn on the crowd, you just can't get that by yourself.
It's an adrenaline rush no one can understand unless you do it.
Unless you do it, yeah. I can make work and feel proud of myself that I'm accomplishing things because, that's part of it for me. But when I go out in the world and people are like, wow, I've never seen that before, let's talk about that.
That's a whole nother feeling.
Yeah. And I was really missing out on that. So now that we're coming back, I'm optimistic. It's full steam ahead.
Good for you. All right, we're going to take a 5-minute break. We're going to come back with Bradley Cahill. He's here in the studio tonight at the 515. Sculptor. What else do you do?
I'm a gardener, reader, collect comic books, family man.
When we come back, we're going to talk about comic books.
I love it.
All right, catch you in 5.
I've never seen that before.
You've never seen that before?
No, I haven't.
Oh, well, we're going to have to bring you up to speed, young man.
Oh, boy.
Test 1 2, test 1 2.
Mic check 1 2.
Mr. Blake Wellington.
Fun to do drums and sing with.
We are back. Yes, we are. We
Yes,
left
we
off
are.
with some comic book conversation.
I like that.
Now, do you go into the old comic books or the new comic books? Or a little bit of both?
A little bit of both. I used to collect when I was a kid, and as a young teenager, I get into a lot of the mutant comics, X-Men, and things like that. And I stopped collecting, but I always loved going to the comic shop. And it's like, do you have extra money? Well, who has extra money? But finally, I just decided I wanted to start collecting again, and I started collecting this character called Mr. Miracle. He's this
Mr. Miracle. Is that a new one or an old one?
He's an old, obscure character, DC character. Jack Kirby drew him and wrote this character. Well, this fellow named Tom King had written it was a short series of 12 issues, I believe. And I was so enamored with this story. It was just a contained story that had a lot of... Do you remember the movie Jacob's Ladder?
Yes, I do.
This story had very kind of tones of Jacob's Ladder. It was very strange, very existential.
Because the Jacob's Ladder movie, wasn't that about a guy that was having some acid flashback from Vietnam or something like that?
It was like a whole...
Please, I'm probably wrong on that.
No,
but
you're right. It was like a whole
Okay.
life flashback, and then at the end, not a spoiler alert, that was like 87 or something, or 89 when that movie came out. He was dying. It was his last moments.
Okay.
Well, this story, this Mr. Miracle story that Tom King wrote, was very kind of reminiscent of that Jacob's Ladder story. So it just got me hooked, got my imagination, and kind of made me realize, like, I love that kind of stuff. I always watch the comic book movies. the Marvel films. and
That's
all
where I
that.
was going to take this conversation.
Yeah.
Because I didn't realize that Deadpool was a comic book.
Oh yeah.
There was so many movies that are coming out now that were based off of comic books
Right.
that I had no idea. Like I just got finished up with the Walking Dead series. It's on Netflix, and it's winter time, and I'm working on the house, so I'd play it. And one of my guys in the band was like, "Well, that came from a comic book." I'm like, "Well, I didn't know that."
And it was a comic that, among so many other titles, that it's so strange and unpredictable what titles will become popular and then become cultural icons, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
That was a comic book too?
That was a comic that came out in the 80s, and it was an amateur, not amateur. The first comic of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was not, what it would become. Obviously.
Okay.
And then once the characters sold and became larger part of the popular, part of the popular culture, really, it's so strange. But yeah, it started out as a book that was right alongside Superman and Green Lantern, and nobody could have predicted that this strange book would do what it did. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, what are you talking about? Oh no, now there's how many movies, different iterations of it, backpacks, everything.
Marketing took over.
They found something. It tapped into something at that time, and the marketers were able to run with it in some way. I don't know, it's weird.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff like I was saying before, I just did not realize it came from comic books.
Yeah, even obscure things like on Netflix, The Umbrella Academy. That's
I don't know that one.
It's a Netflix original series, I believe. It's pretty good. There's 2 seasons of it, and that came from a comic. Sweet Tooth, I think that's an original on Amazon, I believe. But yeah, and now that Disney has, Disney bought Marvel, and so now Marvel has all the money to do everything.
Sure.
Those movies are spectacular.
Because I know when I was a kid, I was collecting The Thing.
Oh yeah.
Remember the Rock Thing?
Oh, absolutely.
Sculpting.
Part of Fantastic Four.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
Ben Grimm, he was awesome.
Then there was The Incredible Hulk. Was a comic book before it was the movie.
Yep.
Spider-Man, obviously, and Batman. We know all them.
Yeah. Do you remember the Incredible Hulk TV show with
Lou Ferrigno.
Lou Ferrigno?
I
Yeah.
grew up with it.
That was so good. That was so good. Who played Bruce Banner? It wasn't Michael Landon. It was...
The actor, I don't remember.
I can't recall. But anyway, when they made the Incredible Hulk movie with Ed Norton, the opening credit was taken exactly from that TV show. The light,
Ed Norton, is that the one with Sam Elliott? He was like some military general.
Was Sam?
Because there was a
Elliott?
lot of remakes of the Hulk.
There were, yeah.
And I don't remember which one you're talking about.
It would have been the more recent movie.
Okay, the one I'm thinking of is probably late 90s.
Yeah, that was. Yeah. I think Ang Lee might have.
I think
done
it was
the
Ed
direction.
Norton.
Yeah,
Because he ended up down in South America trying to hide.
right. Yeah, doing the.
So that was the one I'm
bottling.
thinking of.
Yeah, Sam Elliott. I don't remember what character he played though.
He was a general in the military.
Oh, okay.
And then there was, I think it was Gary Busey.
See, you're crisscrossing both of them. Yeah, Gary Busey was in the first one. Or no, not Gary Busey. It was Nick Nolte.
Bingo. There you go.
That's
Those two
it.
kind of
Yeah.
remind me of each other.
They remind me of each other too. They're like weird cousins
Yeah, yeah. How'd
so
you like to go out
wacky.
drinking with them guys?
That would be awesome. I'm going out with Gary Busey and Nick Nolte. Oh, well.
Oh, yeah. I already got bail money.
Yeah, I don't know where we're going to end up, but just be waiting by the phone.
Yeah, so I was integrating 2 different shows, wasn't I?
Yeah, it's all right. But anyway, the one with Ed Norton, the opening credit, it takes exactly from that original TV show, the Lou Ferrigno. It was so good. Like, they had me hooked in that movie right in the opener. You know. So yeah, I started. I've just found that, you know, collecting comics, it's been really good for my brain. You know, it's as a creative person, I really like seeing those little contained nuggets of art and literature.
Inspiration.
Yeah, it's always inspirational. You know, if anything, you know, just for my dreams, you know, makes my dreams
Okay,
more
so I got a
colorful.
question for you.
Sure.
So if you could write your own comic book,
Mm-hmm.
what would it be?
Well, that's funny because I'm starting to kind of formulate some things. I think a
I
lot.
tapped into something, didn't I?
Well, I think a lot about magic and like with collecting.
What kind of magic?
Like abracadabra, you know, like when I was a kid, I went and saw David Copperfield.
Oh, okay.
I like stage magic.
Penn and Teller are pretty cool.
Penn and Teller are just the masters among masters.
Yeah,
You know?
they could teach the masters.
Like, do you remember their first the first time that anybody really saw Penn and Teller was a Run DMC video? Remember? It's Tricky.
No, I don't remember that.
They played what's the game? What's it called? The 3 cards. You know, like on the streets of New York, there'd be the 3 cards.
Oh yeah,
and
like
one's-
kind of like a shell game kind
yeah,
of a
is
thing.
it 3-card Monty? Is that what that is?
I'm not a card player, so I don't know.
Okay. In the It's Tricky video, they had Penn and Teller, and they were running a 3-card Monty game. So good. Yeah, I love that stuff. I'm so fascinated with magicians. We were talking inside. You brought up Night Court.
Yeah.
Judge Harry T. Stone, what's the actor's name? Harry Anderson. He was, when he was alive, a very
Yes.
accomplished magician.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. He did a lot of appearances on Cheers and different things.
Mm-hmm. I've heard that there's a club somewhere in Chicago where there's some magician's club of some sort, that he would show up there quite a bit, but he was a big time in that realm, I guess.
Okay, so back to the comic book,
Mm-hmm.
and you writing your own comic book.
I'm thinking about it. You know, I've been in my studio practice. I like to work on my stones for a good 8 or 10 hours. It's very physical, so my body is ready to quit, but my brain is not. So
Okay.
I go in and I've been drawing at night, you know, for a couple hours just to kind of wind down. And the things that I keep drawing are, you know, magician type characters or things that keep
You got the
coming to mind.
little thought bubbles in the vocal, the little things where they were speaking.
Not quite yet. Just kind of coming up with characters here and there, and just
Okay.
kind of using the drawing medium as a place to think. You know.
So what would be your sculpting superhero name? Because obviously your superhero is going to be a sculptor.
Yeah. That's a good question. I don't know. Dusty Rhodes. Dusty Rhodes swinging a hammer and chisel. Look out.
Kind of like Thor. Just got a chisel and
Yeah.
a hammer.
He was there at the Berlin Wall, poking holes.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's weird. Like right now, it's funny. I go to Graham Crackers in DeKalb, to the comic shop, and the guys working there. We talk a lot about how comics. There's a lot of superhero stuff, but there's a lot of other kind of things going on. A lot of horror comics that are really pretty fascinating. And other, let's see, there have been a lot of short series coming out that'll be like one little short story, 5 or 6 issues. There's one title called Sea of Sorrows that just was so interesting. It's about a group of people that they are out in the Bering Sea outside of Alaska, and they are diving old wrecks. They're looking for treasure.
And this is a comic book.
It's a comic book, yeah.
Okay.
And they find a monster in the bottom of it.
That's awesome.
It's so interesting. And it's only 5 or 6 issues, so it builds up. It's not I don't know. A lot of the superhero stuff can kind of drag on sometimes. It can get old, so put a monster in there,
And once you kill him,
I mean, some of them, what's great, like that one, there is no like real end. The spoiler alert, the monster wins.
the monster. Well, that's even cooler. Now, was Godzilla or King Kong a comic book?
That's a good question. I mean, I know Godzilla started in Japan, right? It would make sense it started as a book.
I don't know if the Japanese are into the comic books. I don't know how that whole idea got built.
Yeah, I don't either. But, I mean, I know before Godzilla made it over here, he was like a cultural icon all over Asia. So I would bet he probably has a bunch of comics.
It might not have been a comic, but it was probably some kind of book or a short story.
Shows up maybe in an advertisement. He sells dishwasher detergent or something.
Here lately, I've been into old black and white sci-fi horror movies.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I could talk forever about that.
Tell me, what's the last one you just saw?
The last one I just saw was Earth versus the Flying Saucers from 1957, I believe.
Wow, that's going back in the Wayback Machine.
Is
that
it's
the
a
one
lot
where
of fun.
they're the saucers over the Capitol when they're in D.C.? Is that the one?
No, this one is that the Flying Saucers were taking people from around the world and giving them a certain little box with some pills in it, and they were trying to warn mankind of not using nuclear weapons.
Sure, yeah.
And then I watched a movie called The Giant Gila Monster. It was so awesome. I've been burning Cam and the rest of the guys out on this. I'm always talking about it.
So those old school monster movies.
Well, I love that stuff, but I wonder how much of that stuff came from the comic books.
Probably a lot of it. I would imagine.
Like Frankenstein, did it come from a comic book?
Well, it came from a novel. Mary Shelley.
There you go. Okay.
So media influencing media, that to jump from one to the next. And now what's funny, like when I was a kid and collecting comics in the in the late 80s, early 90s, it was a boom then. And then there was a bust in the late 90s. There was a huge comic bust.
People lost interest.
There were new companies that came out, and they were trying a lot of new kind of gimmicks and sinking a lot of money in fancy covers and things. And so then there was a bust. But now we're seeing this huge, after all these spectacular Marvel movies, now we're seeing comics having a huge boom again. There's so many titles.
What was the name of that guy that was in a lot of movies that made a lot of comic books that were turned into movies? He did like a cameo in every one.
Oh, that's Stan Lee.
Yep, there you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Marvel films, when they started with Iron Man, one of my buddies and I talk about this all the time, starting with a character that, he was popular, but he wasn't as popular as, say, Batman or whatever. But he made everybody, they made those movies to make everybody care about him. and Robert Downey Jr. being in that.
He did a good job. I liked part 2 with Mickey Rourke, who
Yeah.
played that. I forget his name.
It's called Whiplash, I think.
Something like that. Yeah.
Mickey Rourke is great. Yeah. I don't care what anybody says. I love Mickey Rourke.
Yeah, he was good in The Wrestler.
Yeah. I mean, there's just something about him that I like the stuff that he's been in,
Mm-hmm.
So
Now, do you have any Kiss comic books?
I don't know. It's funny. I was never really Kiss. I really wasn't of the age. They weren't very popular when I was.
It was. You were born when?
77.
Okay, so that was when their first comic books probably came out.
It was pretty legendary.
Because they put their own blood
Right,
into the
yeah.
red ink.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
So being a comic book guy, I didn't know if that was something you were seeking. Like, I got to have that in my collection. Just because.
I think every collector, even when you're a kid or when you're older, you got to think about those things because there's all kinds of variant covers and this one's made out of foil and this has got a thing that comes with it. How much money do you want to spend? Now,
You and I need to go on a field trip.
yeah.
Yeah, there's a place in Rockford that's got old albums, comic books, and all kinds of stuff.
Toad Hall.
Toad Hall,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah,
I
go there
love
often.
Toad Hall.
Yeah.
Do you really?
Absolutely, yeah. My buddy Will, we go there because he lives in
Well,
Rockford and.
Okay, well, next time you're going there, swing by, pick me up. I'll go to
That's-
Toad Hall.
No,
I've got
absolutely.
tons of albums. One of my best Alice Cooper albums came from Toad Hall.
I love those kind of shops that, they're not just. I like shops that have a little bit of everything like that, because those are the kind of shops, or like a flea market. I love flea markets. Flea markets today are not like they were in the 80s. They're just not.
Exactly.
They're a lot of fun, but Toad Hall, yeah, I'll just, I'll go pick up Will and I'll just pick a title, like there's just certain characters. I really like the Dazzler. I like Sleepwalker. I like characters that not a lot of people, they're like C, D level.
How about any Sasquatch type comic books?
Sasquatch, like from Alpha
Bigfoot.
Flight.
He's no, I don't know no Alpha
Oh, okay.
Flight. Just Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Yeti.
I used to read like Fate magazine. They would be all about Bigfoot sightings, UFO sightings,
What was
and
it
that
called?
kind of stuff. Fate.
Not fake.
Nope.
Fate.
And there was another one. There's been a couple of them. Fortean Times. This guy, there would be a couple of those weirdo magazines in like the late 80s, early 90s, or like Art Bell on AM radio.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff is really pretty fascinating. It's weird.
How about when Orson Welles had read War of the Worlds and everybody lost their fucking minds? For real.
What a crazy. Like, we're so desensitized now that, I mean, it has to be happening in your living room for people to even get up.
The War of the Worlds, that was crazy.
It was. It caused a panic,
I know.
and just the way that he was able to deliver the inflection in his voice and everything. He delivered it. He made people believe it.
Exactly.
Where they're like crashing their cars and things. Can you imagine?
Hitting the grocery store, stockpiling food.
Yeah. We don't know. Did everybody go and did they run out of toilet paper in that time?
I don't know. Maybe they had hot water and a warm washcloth.
Maybe. Who knows?
It's very stimulating,
Scare the shit out of everybody. There's aliens coming down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we should probably wrap this up.
Okay.
It was a lot of fun having you back in the studio. Thank you very much for coming out.
Thanks for having me on.
Remind everybody where you can see your stuff.
On social media, especially Instagram and Facebook, the Church of Dust. Pretty much everywhere is the Church of Dust is where you can find me. Also, for right now, you can see my work also at cultsculpture.com. That's going to become the churchofdust.com eventually when I get around to some web work, but I've got work all over the place. So check it out. Thanks for having me.
You're more than welcome, man.
Cam, thank you.
All right, catch you guys later.
Salute.